Okay, everyone. Hello, it's Amy here from the Basel Communicators Network, and thank you for joining us today. It's very exciting that we have our guest with us, Peter Sibley from WTV. He is going to enlighten us with a range of different technologies that we can be using as communicators to be engaging with our audiences, particularly as the world becomes more and more virtual. Peter does have to leave at 6 p.m. So he's got a very entertaining presentation for us and a lot of facts to share. There will be a Q&A, but we will have a finish with Peter at 6, and then for those that want to stay on a network, the line will be open until 6:30 p.m. So Peter, I'm handing over to you.
Great, thank you. I hope everybody can hear me clearly and everybody can see the screen. Thank you very much for inviting me. I've been a kind of remote member of the network for a few months, so I haven't managed yet physically to time it, obviously during the coronavirus, but I will show my face at some stage. I've been living in Switzerland for about 19 years, but in the Geneva area, but with the Geneva and Zurich office. So we do have some clients in Basel as well. So just to introduce myself, I'm Executive Chairman and CEO effectively of WTV. We've been around for a frighteningly long time, which is 29 years and 5 months. Previous to that, I was the International TV and Comms Coordinator for Greenpeace, interestingly enough, who were quite pioneering with the use of TV and imagery and brand building back in a very frightening time called the 1980s. So since then, WTV has really just been a specialist business video communications agency supporting governments, supporting international organizations, supporting the corporate sector. We have a few hundred clients around the world. We have offices in 6 countries. We operate across EMEA and APAC and the US, and we do a few thousand projects a year, of which around 80% are virtual events. So you know, whilst it's been a nasty old situation, it's actually been a very, very busy time for us. So that's just to intro me and where I came from. So just to start off with the bad cheesy jokes at the beginning of this. So, you know, are you consumed with live video business communications? Are you WebEx exhausted? Are you Google hung out and dried? Yes, everyone is. We've all spent the last 8 or 9 weeks using business video communications tools all day, every day, and often physical events have obviously been transformed very quickly. The market is going through a substantial pivoting point, and lots of people and lots of companies like us too are all trying to address the new normal with what the new dynamics are, what they'll be, what we can predict, what we can't predict. And of course, the future will be both physical and remote. It won't just be one way, but the nature of what will be physical and what will be remote will obviously change, and it'll take a period to settle. So the key factor for us really working with our clients and working in this transformation period is how do you, when your kids, your friends and your grandparents know probably as much about Zoom or often more than you, and you have the pub quiz on a Friday night and the 14-year-old who's running the pub quiz actually shows you all of the deep corporate functionality of Zoom. How do businesses communicate? And I know lots of businesses have had Zoom for a period of years, or WebEx or Google Hangouts or any of those systems or SharePoint systems. The big problem that's happening, and it's an interesting problem, is that because Zoom so quickly, for example, entered the domestic world as a way for people to communicate across the coronavirus through social isolation, that what we're finding with many of our international clients is that Zoom isn't good enough. It's a fantastic platform. It's a very smart piece of kit. But in terms of trying to replicate from a corporate business event point of view, a very important moment in time for an organization or a government or a company, if it looks the same as the pub quiz on Friday night, it doesn't feel quite enough. And times are changing. So I have a few nice little videos here to show you, so I don't want to use up all of my voice too much for you. So let me just show you a short video. So the issue is, how do we make what are becoming standard homogenized business video communications more interesting? How do we make our events stand out? So basically it's around live ideas. It's around thinking about a piece of video business communications or a normal piece of corporate video communications almost as a TV show. So the answers about ideas don't come from platforms. There are brilliant platforms out there. We have many of our own, but we're also, as many businesses are, platform agnostic. So we'll use any platform for the strengths of the platform, of each platform that they have. But technology doesn't give you ideas. So they give you zeros and ones, or as we often think of it, a zero-sum game, which of course comes from game theory. And this is the common situation between the domestic world of business communications and the real corporate world of corporate communications, which is, if it's a zero-sum game, what does it mean? A situation in which each participant's gain or loss of utility is balanced by the losses or gains of the utility of the other participants, i.e., for all of the effort you put in, you become the same as everybody else. So as you think about the new normal, you know, what are you actually missing? Is it good enough to have a Zoom call, a WebEx meeting, a huge Teams meeting, whatever it may be? So we think it's three things. We think it's really understanding what live means in terms of interactivity and engagement. Not that it is live, but what does it mean in terms of live engagement? And that could be content, could be scripting, could be tone of voice, could be the way that, you know, the pre-notifications happen, the information before the event, the follow-up after the event, and what people can do during that meeting other than just speak as another talking head. It means understanding what creativity can do in a live environment, which is very different often than what creativity can do in a static environment. And then it really is understanding what technology can help you achieve rather than what it can technically deliver. And it's all about the ideas on top of the platforms, the live creative technology ideas.
So, you got a problem. Your webcasts are missing that certain something. You wanted something simple, something elegant, something that, you know, just got the job done. And you did it. And it was fine. It could have been so much better. You could have put on a real show. Instead of only reaching these guys, you could have reached these guys. And people could have been like, instead of just like, you need some new ideas. You need some expertise. You need to call us.
So that's the framing, really. Live creative technology is all around the ideas that apply to the platforms that you can use for business video communications. And I think that will be the challenge for the new normal, to make sure that we're not just using the technology platforms that are available, but how we will embellish them and how we will make our events stand out. So what I'm going to do now is it's going to be a bit of a whistle-top tour to just kind of try and rank the different things that companies are doing, organizations are doing, from kind of more simple to more complex. So I'm going to give you too much information now, and I'll whisk through this quite quickly. But of course, one of the first things is actually how you can use Zoom, WebEx and Teams and meetings in a creative way. Lots of functionality, and often people only touch the top of the iceberg of what Zoom and WebEx and Teams and other platforms can do. But we've all seen these things, and creatively managed Zoom, WebEx and Teams meetings can help get the best out of these things using all of the functions, getting presenters and panelists in studio setups, even pop-up studio setups. We all know about green screens and themes and backgrounds, but there are more sophisticated ways to do those, to create those two-way interactions. Better presenter, moderator control, things like Zoom. Obviously, everybody probably aware on this call that there's the normal Zoom Teams, there's Zoom webinars, but there's also government levels of Zoom, which are there with higher security levels. So there's quite a lot behind the platforms that you might be using in quite a direct way. And then, of course, the actual integration of all the attendee interaction options, the Slidos, the VVoxes, the questions, the chat, the raising the hand, the voting polling, particularly the live chat, and how you manage some of that live chat is really important. With these meetings as well, think around things like how you're going to set up the meeting, how lumpy a virtual meeting can feel when the first 1.5 minutes might be housekeeping. We do a lot at the moment of housekeeping videos, which actually run on a roll for 2 or 3 minutes before any meeting, which says exactly what's going to happen in the meeting, what they can do, what they can't do, what to make sure they've got in front of them. And then that means that a meeting can start beautifully with, and now we're going to talk around, rather than make sure that you understand everything that you need to do technically on this platform. Things like chapters, things like animations, stings, the sound identity, even of a Zoom or a WebEx or Team meeting. You know, if you start with a video, cut the sound profile of that video up and make little animated stings to chapterize your business communications, but use the same sound theme across those animations and stings. Don't just put a slide up with the name of who's going to speak next. So embellishing and making the best, the creative beauty out of, you know, simple business, what seem like simple business transactional meetings, and all of those you'll be pretty familiar with. Then, of course, there's webcasting, and of course, you know, the last 8 or 9 weeks, everybody's been doing remote webcasting, much more traditional, much more corporately controlled. So even though Zoom webinar exists, if you want to do things like control exactly the slides, if you want to do things in 20 languages, if you want to make sure that your slides and your presenters are fully synchronized, if you want to have very carefully moderated questions and answers with moderator and presenter consoles, which are linked into the live presenter or the live moderator, then webcasting is a much more controlled corporate environment and can give you quite a lot of depth that things like Zoom and WebEx don't have, in terms of, you know, live translated captions with a level of accurate, you know, machine captioning with human correction, and all the other ways of playing in content which are a little bit more sophisticated than Zoom. As you can see, playing things like video and slides into Zoom, unless they're built into a pre-edited video, is still a little bit lumpy, whereas a webcast is a little bit more Rolls Royce. Everything can be played in a running order incredibly smoothly, but these are even more highly managed than a Zoom or a WebEx kind of managed call. Also, you get a lot deeper data. And of course, you know, as with these, you don't have to then sit and play, record, and hope that Zoom eventually sends you your recording. Recently, we've had Zoom take as long as 4 or 5 days to deliver a recording back of a meeting because of obviously their capacity has been limited. They seem to have sorted that out recently, but a live webcast can be on demand, fully interactive, videos, synchronized, languages within 1 or 2 hours of a live event. And again, you'll probably be familiar with that live webcasting format. So moving up the chain in terms of complexity. So Netflix style live interfaces for companies are one of the next levels. So instead of having just a call, which isn't branded, you can't have slides, a WebEx kind of Zoom kind of call, unless you share them yourself. Then you move to webcasting, where you've got the corporate control environment. The next stage is it's very easy to build a portal which will host your business video communications. So effectively, this is a microsite, but it's got some pretty smart business video functionality within it. So a normal registration site, lots more information that you can add that you can't necessarily add in a webcast or in a Zoom or WebEx call, interactive breakouts, live streams, agendas, homepages, all of these can be populated, and all these navigations can change very, very quickly. And again, you've got things like live chat, you've got multiple languages, surveys, polls, auto captioning, all of these functions. And here you go, this is the kind of content that you can put in. But the Netflix style part of it, which is actually really interesting, is the fact that you have a live webcast platform built in to this kind of portal, which can have all the functionality of a webcast or you could have your WebEx meeting in this kind of format. All the functionality built in, but you can also have all of the video that you might be playing in, or any video that the organization or company owns, or the event highlights, drop into this, so it becomes an on-demand center. So this is the Netflix style, and within here, within here you can have, you know, most watched, most popular, least watched. You can rank them, you can do all of those different moments, so that you're building for a specific event, a little destination site with all of that Netflix style navigability, but it holds both live and on-demand video, and that, you know, normally these things, you know, can then be live for as long as anybody wants, typically 12 months, or they can be then used for the next event where the live content changes, but more video is added, so it builds up almost like a little digital asset management platform for your business video. And you can see other frames here, again, live WebEx coming in, live screens, all of the speaker information, all looking very beautiful. So that's around, and these have been around for, you know, a year or two, and we find that probably from our client base, most people now are doing these rather than webcasting, but they're building webcasting in as one component. They're building in live chats and breakout sessions and one-to-one chats using all the functionality of Zoom, and then they're adding lots of video content, or snipping away from the 2-hour piece of communications post-event, very quickly turning it into 10, 15, 2 minutes of speaker highlights, interviews, whatever the purpose may be. And then the next part here is the next kind of clever part of it, which is combining all of those features. So the way I'm building this up is going, there's WebEx and Zoom, there's webcasting, here are portals that will hold and deepen and enrich the business video communications environment. And the next piece is this. So let me see if this link works. So this is a platform, and this is the next level. So this is basically a virtual event interface that can combine all of these elements. So what you do is you create a unique space. You design it, you decide on the building design. It could be your own building virtualized. It can have any level of design elements. You can populate it with people. They can be socially distanced or not. They can change clothes, ethnicity, age, demographic, anything you want. And you're basically making another slightly deeper destination for your moment in time. So this was for Médecins Sans Frontières only about 2 weeks ago, for 2 days. So as a case study, these scientific days have been going for about 5 years. They normally invite 1,000 people to a conference hall that looks much like this, and they meet and they network, and they, you know, attend, and there are booths and information and Skillshare sessions. This year they couldn't do that, so they decided to ask us to support them. So this is the basic thing. You basically decide on the number of rooms that you want, how you want to configure the space, and you can add any type of room that you like, and you decide on the user experience and what you want your attendees to achieve, what you want them to take away, how you want them to engage, how you want them to build a community by attending this event, how they can contribute. So this is a typical lobby, so you can see the space for sponsors actually live during this event, which was quite interesting. There was an attack on an MSF, Médecins Sans Frontières run hospital in Kabul. Within 5 minutes of the event going live, that news came through. So we put up a message and condolence board on one of the spaces that we had, and removed a different part. And that was a way that this can actually act as a live forum. So you've got your navigation parts, and then you can go off and you go, I would like to go to see the live events, and there are 5 plenaries, they're happening at this time. I can join these, I can interact with them. These can be webcasts, these can be Zoom webinars, these can be any level of business video communications, and you can go and visit those. And if you're an attendee, you will be notified every time there is a new live event within this space across the 2 days. You will be sent on screen, but also via email. Don't forget to come and join the live plenary at 10 o'clock. It's starting in 15 minutes. So a little bit of a tannoy. Then you've got the options within these virtual event interfaces to go, well, actually, we've got some partners, we've got some stakeholders, or ourselves. So we want to be able to actually have booths, just as we might in a trade show or an event or a congress. And these could all be different. In this case, they were all MSF specialist booths. And in these places, you can do anything. You could chat to somebody at MSF live who is remote, and you could say, I'm really interested in this project, virtual reality training. How can I get more access, etc., etc. Or you can go and watch a pre-recorded demonstration.
Virtual reality training.
And off you go. But equally, you can connect directly with people connected to that booth, whether it's chat, or you can also, within these formats, you have a swag bag or a briefcase, as I think it was called. In this case, you can go around and anything that's a PDF or a thought piece or a white paper or anything interesting to you at all, you simply drop it into your personal attendee briefcase. And when you leave the session, that downloads onto your desktop and you've taken everything away that you might want to use. So that's the demo hall. You can have as many booths as you can or as you want to. Then there's resource centers where, again, you can have the agenda, the brochure, the highlights videos of the previous day. And then, of course, you can add any level of gamification. I think somewhere in here, there was a hunt for a golden helix. And if you hunted for the golden helix, you would you'd be up on a leaderboard, and you can put all sorts of KPIs that you want. You can go, oh, how many, were they the first to register? Have they encouraged 5 other people to register? How many sessions have they attended? Have they interacted with any of those sessions? What is their engagement level? And the leaderboard can be for the person who is either most engaged or often the most competitive, who knows how to get to the top of the leaderboard. So, and they had poster competitions and vote for your favorite. So other layers of interactivity there. One of the most interesting things about this, so I said at the beginning that MSF had, expected 1,000 people normally to the physical event. They only advertised this within about 2 weeks and made the registration live. They had over 3,500 people attend this. So they're actually 3.5 times the return on investment. And of course, the cost of this was probably less than 1/10, in fact, probably about 5% of the cost of the physical event. We're not suggesting in any way or form that it would replace a physical event and relationship building and partnerships and all those things that will never be replaced. But in terms of a plan, in terms of the engagement, they felt it was a huge return on investment, if not only to keep momentum, but one of the most interesting things that they really liked about it was, and you can see even now, this event has been closed since the 14th of May. We're now on the 26th or the 27th of May. 2 weeks later, there are still 11 people in here. When this was live, there were only almost simultaneously, there was around 950 people, tipped 1,000 a few times, of people who were simultaneously attending, not just people who'd visited it. And you could see every single one who was visiting, and you could talk to them, and you could contact them, and you could have chats with them. So not many people on here now, but you could find anybody of those 3,500 on here. You could chat with them. You could arrange to share contacts, share the project you're working on, say there's something useful. So in terms of the actual engagement, we've all been to those exhibitions where, you arrive, you're there, you're a bit tired out, you've got your badge, you sit down in the cafe, you get the list of attendees and you go, this is great, I'm here for 2 days and there are 18 people who I really, really want to meet. And then, over the first 2 days, you find you're sitting in the bar on the end of the second day and you've met 6 of them. So in terms of that experience, which seems to be quite common, depending on how vigorous you are at your networking, this way of almost building a direct LinkedIn community of people who have a common interest in being at that event is an accelerator to networking. And there you can see your little briefcase there. So I thought that would be interesting for you to see. We're doing a number of these. One of the interesting things about these is that when you do these, you build it once, and you will then have the facility to run as many events in these across an annual license as you want to. So for example, MSF are now going to be doing their UK annual general meeting in this. So actually this will be closed in a couple of days, It'll be repopulated with content, replanned in terms of live content. All of the badges will change, all the videos will change, some of the signage will change, but the space and the functionality will remain the same. And they'll be using the same platform for their global AGM in October, and then as many events as they want. So they actually create a destination place for different stakeholders, attendees, participants, and their own teams who also use this to connect with the outside world. So it almost is a virtual office space for certain moments in time for an organization as well. So I was keen to show you that because this is relatively new technology. It's been around for a few years, but obviously, with the situation around coronavirus, it's become something which is part of the new normal, and people are doing it every day of the week. So I wanted to share that in case people hadn't had visibility to that. And I've got lots of slides here which all show that, because I wasn't actually, when I built this, I wasn't actually very clear about whether it was still live or not. I only found out this morning it was. Just one more moment. If you want to chat to anybody, it also has auto translate behind it, so you can chat to anybody in any language. But I'm not going to show you any more of that. I'm going to show you something very exciting now, which is remote video capture. So there's a number of these platforms around. So the background to this really is, and I think probably most organizations have tried to create, to use mobile video footage within their communications to a low-cost way of capturing authentic voices around their global employees, creating diversity. It could be around a D&I initiative, whatever it may be. But the general experience over the last period of years of people experimenting with mobile phone video footage is that there are lots of things that you can't control. It's very difficult to put a control environment around mobile phone footage. Briefing is difficult and one-to-one. What you actually get back is often of poor quality, whether that's the audio, the sounding, the sound, the framing, any of those components of the actual content creation. And then, of course, getting it back late or early. And then, of course, the 4 days it takes for the editor to go through the 98 minutes of wonderful footage that one of your very keen colleagues has created to find the right 12 seconds is an expensive and time-consuming process. So we developed something called Cruise Studio. And this is not the only one, so this isn't a shameless pitch for us. There are plenty of these around. In fact, there's 3 or 4 of them around, but this is one of them. And what it does is it's an app that takes over your phone, your mobile, it takes over the video on your mobile phone, your smartphone, and it creates that control environment to make sure if you are using user-generated content across your teams or across remote teams, then you actually can use this to create very nice, high quality, brand controlled, message controlled video, again at around the 10th of the cost of traditional video production. So of course, this has been quite a busy product over the last 2 or 3 months, as traditional video crews couldn't fly, couldn't turn up to studios, couldn't move around and interview people in streets. So let me just show you a little video, because you're probably getting tired of my voice, and this summarizes exactly how it works better than I can.
Introducing Cruise Studio, the digital video production platform that creates authentic user-generated content. Cruise Studio turns anyone with a phone into a video expert, making it a great way to deliver low-cost, high-quality and fast turnaround content from anywhere. Smart in-camera functionality aids filming, including orientation lock, grid lines, spirit level, and automatic upload. It also helps to ensure the user captures not just the right content, but the best quality content, with bespoke shot lists and questions, as well as on-screen filming tips. And Cruise Studio can be white-labeled and managed by you for your own digital video production. Creating a project is easy. Step 1. Collaborate with our teams to create the right brief, or create it yourself. Step 2. Create the project with shot lists, filming instructions, and questions. Step 3. Users download the app from Google Play or the Apple App Store for free. Step 4. Follow the on-screen instructions to film and upload footage instantly to our secure servers from anywhere in the world. Step 5. The footage is downloaded and edited by us, or by you. And Step 6. Music, graphics and subtitles are easily added, and the final product is ready to go. Simple, low-cost, global video production. Get in touch to find out more. Cruise Studio. User-generated content at its best.
So the ways companies are using this is in all sorts of different kinds of ways. They are using it for some surprising things. They're using it for event highlights videos. They're using it for certain days of the year. So as a good example, we do a lot of work with HSBC globally. 2 years ago, they used to fly our teams around the world, and our teams would fly around the world, and we would film, say, 12 women leaders in certain business functions who would then be celebrated, and they'd be promoting International Women's Day. That's expensive. It used to cost them around £125,000 to do, and it would take 3 or 4 weeks of post-production, and we'd have to do it way before International Women's Day. With this kind of product, which we now use, they can set up a project the day before International Women's Day. They can contact 50 or 100 or 1,000, but that would be too many. They can set up a project inside Cruise Studio that asks 3 pertinent questions and asks those women leaders in those different places around the world who are remote to answer or film or perform very, very short tasks. They carry that out. They press a few buttons with tasks that take less than 1 or 2 minutes to complete. So there's no distraction of time. They press submit, and all of that video content is delivered in the cloud to our edit suites. It also works where clients have their own editing suites, and all the brand is ready. All the content is there, and within 24 hours, you can have an almost live International Women's Day or any other kind of event. The other ways people are using it is in remote situations, oil rigs, for example, places where it's very expensive to get traditional crews. But also some people are using a single project to gather video footage over a long period of time, or in many, many countries with a common theme or a common subject. Obviously, using this with the general public, there are consent forms attached to this. So, you know, capturing vox pops, capturing voices, capturing testimonials, client testimonials, patient group testimonials, all very, very easy and all very controllable. So the control mechanisms involved in this are pretty simple. So this is not a multimedia tool. This is our absolute mantra, and it is of any other competing platforms. The user journey has to exactly mirror the daily use of a smartphone. This is not something you download and then learn to use. So it has some very simple things which are pretty automated. So it has things like a little grid that shows you if you are holding it the right way. It has orientation lock, so that if you put it in portrait and you have set up your task as the comms manager, that you want everything in landscape, then it'll tell you to turn the phone round and it won't allow you to film anything wrong. It has a duration limiter, so that each of the simple tasks that you ask your users to do, say your name for 10 seconds, if they take 12 seconds, it will ask them to re-record it and do it again. It also has, from a corporate perspective, security features built into it. We have CFOs using this. For example, all of the footage which is submitted automatically disappears from the user's phone to make sure that the CFO, who's recorded a very sensitive moment, doesn't leave his phone when he gets home, and young Jimmy plugs it into Instagram, and before you know it, the company's share price has dropped by 2%. And lots of other things, but at a very simple level, it is, as the video says, it puts the video direction in the hands of the comms managers, who can give very simple tasks with very, very limited interpretation by any user, and it allows you to capture remotely any video content with a level of quality control. We're not suggesting that this is shiny, corporate, brand-winning, Oscar-winning corporate video, but in terms of the authenticity of company communications, it's a very, very low-cost tool. And we only launched our version of this about a year and a half ago, we have 70 or 80 companies and organizations using it to date. What else can I tell you? This is what it comes with. It comes with a whole production platform, so you can see every user. Every user has a profile. You can see the content they've created. You can manage your users. You can communicate with users. You can archive content. And this is how the video comes in into the back end, so it can be fully viewed and organized and then turned into any content. Of course, you can do traditional editing with any of this content that comes in. You can do your normal messaging, scripting, editing, graphics, animation, music, voiceovers, language versioning once you've captured your content. Or there's a clever little thing within here which is actually called template editing. Again, not a sophisticated media tool, but a way, if you need, for example, if you're a social media manager and you want to create lots of very, very frequent video, but to a known template. If it's a 30 seconds, you need to do one of these a week or one of these a day, rather than get the content and edit each one originally. What we tend to do is that we basically create a template for that 30 second that has the brand, a choice of music, any transitions, the 5 shots that will be required. And actually within that platform, you simply choose the existing template for, say, that social media feed, which has been predefined. You can add captions in, you can change them very, very easily. And we basically call it snap to fit. So you pick a template, you drag whichever Cruise Studio content you've gathered remotely around the world, you drop it into a very simple grid. You can change any captions, you can change the music, copyright free. You add those things and then you press a button, and what it does is it goes crunch, crunch, crunch for about 20 seconds and it delivers an MP4 that you can load directly onto your social media outputs. And of course, you could use that for any kind of channel. So there's an interesting word there in terms of channel. The way the new normal is working, particularly around video communications, is with these lower cost tools, particularly around remote video capture, we're asking clients to think not about the video that they need to make. We, again, TV-like, we're saying, think about the channels that you want to create. If it used to cost you X amount to create a corporate video with a shelf life of a year, these days, and with the new normal, you can probably create 26 videos, one every 2 weeks, which will have a constant theme. It's recognizable, it'll build engagement, it becomes something that people will digest because they become familiar with it. So think about your new normal video strategy in terms of developing channels, not in terms of how nice the video might look for the CEO on Thursday afternoon. So that leads us pretty much to a close. I'm being aware of, I did say Q&A. I think, Amy, you wanted there to be some time for questions, and I'm sorry I've got such a tight 6 o'clock. So that's my short but dense presentation. So with that in mind, thank you very much for having me available, always in Switzerland, to talk to anybody in much more detail, in more considered way. Amy, back to you.
Thank you so much, Peter. I'm such a communications person. I'm just so excited by all of these things you've shown, particularly, I think, the Congress Hall, the online Congress Hall, and that remote video capture is really, I mean, to me, I've not seen something like that, so that's really exciting. Yes, so the line is open, and I know that Peter really does have, he's got heads of state on the line with him at 6 p.m. So I think, Peter, we will let you off, you know, a little early because it's not every day that someone I talk to has got the international governments waiting to talk to them about their next event. So yes, please, everyone, you can type into the chat, you can ask your question, take your phone off mute, put your video on. I'm handing over to the floor here.
Hello, hi, this is Adrienne. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. I was just wondering, you know, from this virtual conference, what was the reaction of the people? Did you get some feedback? How did they experience it?
Yeah, there were, and again, it's a nice thing actually to ask, because they are, you can put a lot of surveys behind it. That data has actually gone to MSF, not to us, and they are processing it. But certainly they say, I mean, they were absolutely, number one, they were delighted that they could do it rather than not do it. Number two, they were very surprised by the level of registration, and they were particularly surprised by the level of interaction between the attendees. So across those three features, and you know, and I think as the measure of success, because they've now decided, not necessarily just for coronavirus, but because they've now created this destination site to have subsequent events using this, even though they could replicate some of those physically. I think, you know, I think overall positive, but I can't give you, you know, deep audience engagement statistics at this stage, but certainly, yeah, I think that's a clear enough answer.